And I think we're live. Hello one and all. For those new here, my name's Nicki. I'm an author and editor, and I post videos here on YouTube about writing, editing, reading, and all the other things I love. For those who are not new, welcome back. It's the end of the month, so it's that time again when I share, first off, my TV and film watches, and in a little bit, my books that I've been reading during the last few weeks. So, as I said, we're here for TV and film first. I'm just going to get rid of this banner now so it's not blocking half my face off. There we go. So I've been watching a few things, obviously. I was never a big going out person anyway, but with the pandemic, I've been out even less than usual, so I don't have any cinema visits. The cinemas here are open now with social distancing for the seats. But because so many major productions have been pushed back in terms of release date, there's not been really anything major I've wanted to see. I was half interested in New Mutants, which just opened, but I think at the end of the day, I'm going to hold off for now. I'm not that excited that I'm desperate to rush to the cinema to see it, so I'll watch it eventually. But for now, I'm sticking with online viewing. So what have I been watching? First off, I'll mention on YouTube, I'm still watching episodes of Decameron, which is, or Decameron 2.0, I should call it to give it a proper name. And this is something that's been put together by the State Theatre here in South Australia and a theatre group called Act Now. And it's basically a series of 10, roughly 1 hour, some just under, selections of monologues delivered by actors on certain themes. So we're up to, well, episode 8's just come out. I haven't had a chance to watch it yet. So during August, I watched pretty much episodes 4 to 7, I think it was. So there's going to be 10 in all, as I said. So I'll watch episode 8 during this week, and then I'll have 2 more to go. So I'll tell you my final thoughts at the end of September. But this has been interesting. Naturally, with this kind of thing, as with short stories and the like, there are some you enjoy more than others. There have been some pieces that haven't really done much for me, but others that I've really enjoyed. So it's been great anyway, something fun to watch while the theatres have been closed. As with the cinemas, they are just now starting to open up again with social distancing, but there's a bit of a limit on what's going on and what's being presented. So it's not something I expect to get into watching live theatre again until next year. But we'll see. We'll see what happens. So moving on, I watched 6 films during August, quite a few, on SBS On Demand. The first of those was Artic. Now, this is a film that features Mads Mikkelsen, my favourite Danish actor, who I haven't really seen in anything new for a while. So when I saw this one was there, I figured I'd give it a try. He's been stranded out in the Arctic. His plane has crashed, and he's waiting for rescue and just trying to get by, catching some fish and keeping warm, all the usual things. However, when the rescue helicopter arrives in bad weather, that too crashes, and one of the 2 pilots dies, and the other one is severely injured. He decides he can no longer wait for help, and he tries to take the injured pilot with him to a trek to one of the stations. So this is not a film with a lot of dialogue. Basically, Mads Mikkelsen just kind of looks broody most of the time. He didn't have to learn too many lines for this one. It was okay. It was enjoyable enough. A little bit predictable here and there, I suppose, but he gave a strong performance despite the sort of lack of dialogue, as with Valhalla Rising. But it's worth seeing if you like that kind of film. Reasonably realistic compared to some other ones, and nicely shot. So perhaps give it a try, but it's probably not one I'd hugely recommend everyone has to see. The next one was The Man Who Invented Christmas. Now, this is a bit of an interesting one. It's kind of about Charles Dickens writing The Christmas Carol. Obviously, it's highly fictionalized. It's trying to say how his real life circumstances inspired the story. How much is fact and how much is fiction? I think, you have to kind of take this film with a pinch of salt, But that said, it was still entertaining. And Dan Stevens, I think I've got his name right, is playing the young Charles Dickens. And I like him as an actor. I thought he put in a good performance. So, if you're a Dickens fan and you just want something a bit light-hearted and inspiring, it's worth watching. Next up, I watched Rampant. Now, this was a Korean zombie film set in the Joseon era, so historical zombies. This was entertaining. Again, you could kind of predict a little bit what was going to happen and where the story was going to go, but it was nicely put together, well acted, some good effects, nice pacing. There's plenty of action and kept you interested throughout. So I'm actually not a huge zombie film watcher. The only ones I tend to like in English are the slightly more comic ones, like Shaun of the Dead or Warm Bodies, that's got a bit of endearment about it. But I don't generally like zombie films, but I've watched a fair bit of zombie stuff in Korean now, and I do quite like the way they do it, because they tend to go more for the human drama element, and the zombies are almost like a byproduct, if you like. It's just like a catalyst for whatever else is going on. And I don't mind that. I find that quite entertaining. It's not too scary. It's fairly tame on the horror side of things. It's more of this sort of survival drama, I guess you'd call it. So definitely recommend it if you're a zombie fan already, or even if you're not a zombie fan but you like historical historical films with a bit of action and adventure. It's worth watching. It's not scary, as I said, if you're not a big into the horror scares. Next up, another Korean one I watched was Spa Night. This was a bit of a mixed bag for me. It sounded really interesting. It's about a boy who's he's kind of struggling. His parents want him to be a high achiever at college and to sort of raise the family up the social strata, if you like. But he's not very academic. He's not really interested. And he decides to take on a part-time job at a spa in the evenings. And he discovers there are some sort of homosexual meetings going on in the spa, and becomes embroiled in that. I thought it was going to be a little bit more interesting than it was. It was very slow paced. Not much happened for about a good 2/3 of the film until near the end. It wasn't badly acted. It wasn't badly produced. It just felt, I just felt I wanted more to happen than did happen, if that makes sense. It was just a little bit of a non-existent plot, really. There were some interesting moments, but it didn't quite come together, I think is perhaps the best way to put it. Not saying it's not worth watching, but it's not a Korean one I'd definitely recommend. Next up, I watched Doctor Sleep. Now, I always found The Shining really scary. And, I mean, I did watch it fairly young, to be fair. But as I said earlier, I'm not a big horror watcher these days. I was a bit in my early teens, but then I kind of got out of it, and now I find it a bit too much. Too much imagination on my part, mostly. But I was interested in seeing this mainly because I wanted to see how they would continue the story, and because Ewan McGregor is in it, and I do love Ewan McGregor. So my husband watched this one with me because I thought it was a pick that he might enjoy too. And we both did enjoy it. And I know a lot of people had problems with it. And I think the issue is if you go into it expecting it to be like The Shining, because it's not. In terms of the style, the way the horror is represented, it's nothing like it. The Shining was an all-out horror film. I'd say Doctor Sleep is more of a psychological thriller. There are some sort of horror elements, but there's a bit more of a fantasy twist to it than there is in The Shining. And it's not really all-out scary. There were no moments I was kind of cringing or jumping in my seat or anything like that. I thought it was entertaining enough. It's not a film that I'd rush to watch a million times, but I had fun watching it. It kept me interested throughout. I guessed a few things, but the performances were fine. The special effects were fine. Overall, it's pretty standard, middle-of-the-road watch. And finally, the last SBS On Demand film I watched was a Chinese drama called Dear X. This one was actually one that was a sort of bit of a sleeper that took me by surprise, and I really enjoyed it. It's about a boy. His father has abandoned, as they see it, him and his mother, and gone to move in with his gay lover. And shortly after that, he dies. And they then discover that the life insurance benefits are not coming to them, but to the gay lover. And so naturally, they're very antagonistic towards him. They go around there, they're having a go at him. But the boy doesn't get on well with the mother either. And he ends up starting to trail around after his father's gay lover. And he realizes over time that he's actually not the villain that they assumed he was. He spent a lot of his own money putting himself in debt in order to try and care for the father, for the husband. during his cancer treatment and various things. And so we discover that that's why he was left the health benefits, because, or the life benefit payout, because he gotten into debt trying to look after the guy, and the guy wanted him to be able to pay those debts off. So it was really interesting. I thought the exploration of the relationships between the three was great, and even you kind of see things turning around towards the end. So it was a fairly uplifting ending, considering it's a Chinese drama where homosexuality in that country is not well looked on in general. There didn't seem to be a lot of judgment in the piece against this guy, which I thought was good. And overall, it was a really interesting family and psychological drama. So I definitely recommend checking it out if you like that kind of watch. So finally, moving on to Netflix. And I watched 5 series on Netflix during the last month. First off, I'll start with actually the ones that were second series and such. So I watched series 2 of The Umbrella Academy. That was enjoyable. I perhaps didn't love it as much as season 1, but I think I enjoyed the exploration of finding out about them and their powers in season 1, which we didn't have to do again in season 2. But there were still some really great moments. And overall, it was an enjoyable story. I liked the continuation. It took me a little while because they didn't do a big recap, which I'd expected them to. So I kind of remembered where we were up to with the main characters, but I hadn't remembered what had happened with that side organization who are controlling time. So it took me a couple of episodes just to get back into what was going on there. But once I did, as I said, it was enjoyable, entertaining, had me sort of laughing, crying, and I would definitely watch more if they do continue it. And Lucifer, part 1 of season 5. So just 8 episodes. I like this series, but I do kind of feel that it is coming to a natural end. So I think they are stopping at the end of this season, and I think that's probably right, because I think it's starting to feel a little bit repetitive. It's not quite as fresh as it was in those early seasons. I think really 1 to 3 was, well, 1 to 2 definitely was the peak. 3 was okay. 4 picked up a little bit, but I think we are at that natural stopping point now. So I'm keen to see how they're going to end it in this part 2. I don't know how long we have to wait for that, but I think they want to end it on a high rather than let it be one of those shows that drags on and just loses interest more and more each season. So going back to new ones, so I've got 3 to talk about. They are all Korean, as you might expect from my recent viewing, or from my 2020 viewing, really. The first one was Voice. Now, this is a kind of crime thriller, a bit of a serial killer element again. And we have the 2 main characters who begin as sort of enemies, become partners, tracking down the bad guy. It's called Voice because the killer's voice is a key element of the story. I'm trying not to give too much away, but I can say that the main female character, she lost her eyesight for a time when she was a child, and it developed her hearing, so she can hear, masses of times better than an average person. And they use that in order to solve some of these crimes, because she can hear things like they're in a call center, like the emergency call center, and she can hear things on the phone line in the background that give her clues about to where events are taking place and things like that. So they're able to reach people in time. It was entertaining. It was good fun. I liked the characters. I liked the way their relationship developed. It's not really a romance element. It was more just getting this bond of partnership between them from a point where earlier they were antagonistic. And it was enjoyable. So if that's your kind of thing, definitely check it out. It wasn't too long. I think it was about 16 episodes. So sort of the lower end of Korean spectrum. And next up, 2 Cops. So sticking with that kind of crime, partnership investigation element. This one's a little bit got more of a fantasy twist though, because one of the 2 cops in the titles is actually the disembodied spirit of a young con artist who's in a coma in the hospital, who ends up teaming up, sometimes borrowing the body of a detective who is embroiled in several connected cases, including trying to discover who murdered his previous partner. Excuse me. So there's a little bit of a romance element with a bit of a love triangle that's going on with the girl who's a reporter, and who both the detective and the con man are interested in. And it was funny. There was plenty of humour, some good drama moments too, and lots of action as they try to catch the bad guys. So again, definitely a winner. It was really good. I had a few tears at the end as it all concluded. So it's definitely one I'd recommend. And finally, my favourite one for the month is my girlfriend. My girlfriend is a Gumiho. So if you don't know Korean folklore, a Gumiho is a nine-tailed fox who can take the appearance of a woman. And according to folklore, she uses this to lure men and steal their energy and eat their livers and various things. Although this story presents it in such a way that those were rumours, vicious rumours started by women hundreds of years ago who didn't like the fact that their husbands were attracted to the beautiful Gumiho rather than them. So they made up all these fake tales about all these horrible things that she did. This is set in the modern times, and it's a guy who's a young guy, kind of student age, who ends up meeting this Gumiho, and she wants to become a human, and they get embroiled in a bit of a plot to do that, aided and sometimes disadvantaged by a half-goblin who gets involved in this story as well. I don't want to give too much away. This is a really cute one. It's not as, I want to say it's not as adult, but only insofar as it's not kind of gory. There's no serial killers as in some of these others. It's all pretty sweet and romantic. There's a little bit of danger and drama as well, plenty of action, but it's essentially a really cute romantic comedy at its heart. Interestingly, my husband poo-pooed this when I started to watch it, but then he got really into it and he started to watch it too, and he really enjoyed it. So it appeals to a lot of different people. It's a darling little thing, and I would watch this one again because it was such fun. So that wraps us up, I think, for my August watches. I've got a few things on the go at the moment. I've started a new Chinese fantasy drama on Netflix called Handsome Siblings. I'm watching another Korean one at the moment as well called My Love from the Star. And I'm also hopefully finishing this month, or during September, the month coming, the 7 Deadly Sins as well, the Japanese anime on Netflix. So I should have a few things to tell you about next time. I'm going to end there for now. I'll be back in, maybe give me 10 minutes or so to get things set up, 10 to 15 minutes, and I'll be back to do my book wrap up for the month as well. So I do hope you'll join me again then, and if not, I'll see you for another one of these next month as usual. Bye for now, everyone.